Getting some more stuff done on the GTM. It's been a while since I worked on it. I've been helping my boy getting the wiring and the motor put in that Scirocco. So yeah, back on this, and last thing I did was put the intake on it, and I got the valve covers painted, put the motor mounts in, those aftermarket, I don't know how you pronounce it, FAT, P-H-A-D-T, and they're pretty stout, so that thing won't rock. So I won't have to worry too, so much about the clearances and then the rubbing and chafing of the wires and the hoses. And so now I'm going back, getting the sensors and everything dialed in for the wire harness. I got to move the water temperature sensor over to this side, and the only reason I got to move it is because that's how it was wired in the harness. And I had to move the location of the oil pressure sender. And remember, I cut that off and plugged that on the valley cover, because you got to flip the intake 180. And there's the sender. So I had to find a place to put that, and I found out down here on the side of the block. Down here by the starter, there's a boss down here for the oil, and I read on the internet you can tap into there for the oil pressure. So that'll thread right inside there, and I believe it should clear the starter. So I'll rewire, relocate where the wires are for the oil pressure sender. Tuck that down inside there. That'll be a good spot for it. And then the cool thing about that, I don't know where I put it, but the plug that comes out of that hole, oh, there it is right there. The plug that comes out of that hole, right there, would be the perfect plug to use for that. Maybe. I'd have to see it when it was opened up, but that's a possibility. The same plug you use to relocate the sender will fill up the hole that you have to fill up there, so might be a possibility for someone who's looking at maybe doing the same thing. And remember, I haven't tried it to make sure it's going to work yet, so we'll get that done. Get the wiring buttoned up. Got a little bit more done. It's been so while since I've done a video, I can't remember what I've already went over or not. But valve covers on, painted, and tried to kind of simulate the same color as the blue with anodized fittings. It's close. Kind of half like it, kind of half don't like it, but just going for the clean open look. So when you look through the back window, you see a nice clean motor sitting in there. So I've got all the fuel lines hooked up. That all came out really nice. Those all screwed together just like I hoped they would. Got the line hooked up for the PVC, that piece of tubing which runs around for the intake, and relocated those sensors I was talking about. That was no big deal. Put the water temperature sensor, that plugged in there. I did plug in the oil pressure sender down there. Looks like that's going to work out really good. And I didn't have to change the wire at all. It just looped right down in there and plugged in, so that was nice. I got a couple wires here for the starter. And then this is, I'm assuming, for vehicle speed sensor. So really that's the only wire left coming out of that harness. And this will be tucked in and kind of going into the starter. So I love it how that came out, nice and clean. And this will go to the airflow sensor, which will plug in here somewhere. So that'll kind of be simple and look good. And I'm kind of mapping out my coils again just to dress it up a bit. I painted those red, and I'll clean up those wires, and I'll get those mounted in there. Use a nut cert with a bolt so I can take them on and off, and still be able to open up these access holes for each side to be able to get into there. And I don't know if I showed the fact that I got the brake installed. So I do have a working e-brake now. I mounted that down inside there. That first cable that comes off of the brake lever there, that's like a 5-inch cable, and then mounted to that bracket. These are the shifting cables, which those aren't tied in yet, so I don't know exactly where they're going to route. And then each cable is equal length going on each side of the motor. And then the cable on the right side goes to the left, and the cable on the left side goes to the right, and they kind of split right here. And then I'll tie this in once I get the tranny in here. But that'll work out good. And it works. So that's good. Got the headers mounted, O2 sensors in there. The wire harness is basically done, except I got to tie into the AC still, which I brought the wires out for that. Got that hooked to the compressor, and then I got to still reroute the wires for the coils, which will wrap around in here and come up through here and plug in, and you won't see those. And I'm thinking I'm going to have to nail down the intake and figure out what I need to do for that next.